Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Joining us tonight live, John Wayne Bobbitt.
A new low. Joe Giammatteo.
If you see a good-looking girl in Omaha, she's a tourist.
Omaha mating call.
And the king wasn't wrong about at least two of those women.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. And just at the top here, a little house cleaning. You will note that I have survived, penis intact, in case you were wondering, my ordeal last week.
Just like Val.
Yeah. But now that I have survived and dishonored those that were hunting me, they've now turned their eyes upon all of Wrasslin Raw, and therefore next week we will not be recording, as we will be in our respective hidey holes protecting our genitalia.
Though we may lose other appendages since it's the 4th.
Yes. Well, some things are more important than fingers and toes.
And penises.
Besides that, I also wanted to let everybody know that we finally got a foothold in Mongolia.
Yes. Very exciting.
Adding another country to the roster of raw heads out there. You remember that? You remember the word raw heads that we used to use a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. At least you used it.
Well, yeah. The fashionable one of the group.
Beaming straight into yurts now. We're pretty pumped.
Yep.
We are glad to have you listening.
You haven't seen the voice box back in a while. Just that once we saw it.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with that. He must have lent it out to some Mongolians for them to practice their throat singing techniques. But with that said, let's get into it. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on August 10th, 1998. This Raw was recorded at the Omaha Civic Auditorium in Omaha, Nebraska, and features Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. So this starts with a backstage garage view of Mankind losing his shit, saying that he can handle the truth. He wants the truth. The truth will set him free. It seems as though Mankind has now fallen victim to Vince McMahon's CAHOOTS paranoia. And sure enough, we got a recap of the finish to last week's episode where, among other things, Mankind took 2 shots to the dome from Undertaker and then Kane. Not just that, but apparently on Sunday Night Heat last night, Mankind called out The Undertaker. But Kane appeared instead. There was a match, something going on there, and by the looks of things, it was a hellacious encounter between the two of them, but it was actually the old switcheroo, as it was The Undertaker under the Kane mask the whole time. The Undertaker is definitely playing some major mind games now, and we'll get some more of that later. After the proper intro, we got a great view of all the signs in this packed arena, and Mankind coming down to the ring with a chair, fresh bald spots shaven into his scalp. Mankind was still looking for the truth. He informed us, though, that there's only one person that has ever actually given him the truth. That's Vince McMahon. And Vince came out, promptly condescends and shit-talks Mankind, saying, and I popped for this, "I loathe people like you." But really, this was a setup for Vince to narrate to the audience, both live and at home, the recent developments of this story. And we've said it here before, but Vince is just really reveling in this role that he's in, not only of major heel, but main storyteller. He uses these expository soliloquies to lay out the framework for the angle, both the overarching angle and the angle for the evening. But just as Vince was suggesting that Kane and The Undertaker are the same people, despite the fact that we've seen them together in the ring, they've fought each other, for Christ's sakes.
Multiple times.
Hellfire and brimstone erupted, and Kane and Paul Bearer came down to the ring. Paul Bearer tore into Vince, and I popped again when Vince retorted with, "Are you finished?" And then, "That's not your son, that's a son of a bitch." Vince insisted that that was really Undertaker there in the ring, and as soon as Vince went to remove Kane's mask forcefully, the lights went out. When they came back on, the Undertaker was there holding Vince by the goozle. prompting Mankind to come to Vince's defense, and a fight broke out between Taker and Mankind. As this wound down, JR gave us the main event for the night, a tag team title 4 corners match. Austin and The Undertaker in one corner, along with Mankind and Kane, the New Age Outlaws, The Rock and Owen Hart, calling it a star-studded tag team matchup. Also, Val Venus is going to be joining a joint press conference with John Wayne Bobbitt.
Jesus Christ.
God.
Yeah.
The graphic up on the screen, I fucking popped again. It was showing Val with this really painful, morose look on his face, and then John Wayne Bobbitt with this, like, Family Matters Urkel, oh shucks, pause.
Did I do that?
Yeah, this look on his face. So, guys, this was a girthy opener with a lot of storytelling. It set up the whole evening for us. Joe, what'd you think of it?
Well, I like the Sunday Night Heat highlights again. We're seeing Undertaker cosplaying as his brother, Kane, again. We saw that before, so not really that shocking, but it was Sunday Night Heat, so it doesn't matter. Mankind, not a lot happened here. Really. It was a girthy segment, but when it's all said and done, there's not a whole lot that happened here. It's just Mr. McMahon accusing Undertaker of conspiracy and cahoots again, like we've been hearing. But I did like the fact that Mankind got a little bit more action here. He started off the show. He's just been like the fourth wheel in this whole story that they've been telling for the last month or two. So I like that he got highlighted here a little bit, and maybe they're gonna highlight him more in the coming weeks, which would be really great to see. But I think Mr. McMahon did a nice job here as being Mr. McMahon and telling Mankind, I detest people who need help. That made me pop. I think Vince delivered everything perfect like he always does, and I liked that Mankind was highlighted here a little bit.
That's a good place to follow up from, because that was my first thought when the camera started and we saw Mankind backstage, and it reminded me like a year ago how we used to see Mankind, these shots in the bowels of the building and him just being a crazy person. It really brought me back to that, and I was happy to see that we were focusing on him, because it seems like ever since his feud with The Undertaker ended, he's just faded into the background. So it was really cool to see him being used a little bit more here. And they show us this footage from Sunday Night Heat, and it looked like something that should have been on Raw.
Yeah.
As we know, moving forward, eventually no one's going to care at all about Sunday Night Heat. But this just being its second week, they're trying to give us something to entice us to watch it. So that's understandable, but that's going to end pretty quickly, I think. The stuff that happened in the ring with Mankind and Mr. McMahon, we've said multiple times at this point over the last month and a half that this story hasn't been that interesting. And even though they're treading the CAHOOTS waters here again, this actually got me a little bit interested in it. Like last week, they're doing a little bit better job. Part of that is getting Mankind involved. Another big part of that was having Paul Bearer come down and give a promo. We haven't heard, just like we haven't seen Mankind in action all that much, we haven't heard one of these long rants from Paul Bearer in a while. And this was a great one. He starts it off saying, for once, Mr. McMahon, you're going to listen to the fat man. Like, that was a great way to start it off. And Vince, I thought, picked up right there too, saying, that's a son of a bitch. And then trying to take off Kane's mask. I thought all of this worked pretty well. I thought they did a good job with it. And the thing that really came to mind to me was Joe must have enjoyed it. This was 15 minutes of no wrestling.
Yes.
Just drama and a lot of big stars here. So I thought the segment worked.
Yeah. Commercial free, 15 minutes, no wrestling. Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. That's this whole episode, I think, is probably right up your alley then, Joe, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we moved on from there with Sable coming down to the ring. She was there for some reason to introduce Luna Vachon and our next match. I should say first match. Luna with the oddities, the giant Silva, Golga, and the Kurgan. The fucking Kurgan.
I like this Kurgan better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, much better. He's actually seems like he's enjoying himself here. defeats Jacqueline with Mark Marrow by pinfall in 2 minutes and 25 seconds. I really don't have anything to say about the oddities here, other than I was wondering if they overdubbed different music here. I know at some point the oddities were coming out to Insane Clown Posse, but I just don't know if we are to that point yet.
I think they must have been dubbing it, because if you caught their entrance video, it had ICP in the video.
Oh, did it?
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like overdub music, but then I was like, I can't really remember what they came out to before the ICP. So we got footage of a match that apparently happened last week between Marrow and Golga, where Jackie got attacked by Luna. That's what precipitated this match. And I remember thinking, whenever I was watching last week's episode, I remember thinking, like, I could have sworn my research said that their Golga was in here somewhere. I'm not sure what happened there, but...
Dark match.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's all I really had on this. The only 2 points that I wanted to leave here are that I liked seeing both Luna and Jackie legitimately wrestle, because the action between the two of them looked good. It was just buried in a bunch of Sable and Marrow bullshit. But also, with some of the high impact moves they were doing, I'm really surprised that an implant didn't rupture. So, Joe, were you as concerned for the health of the bolt-ons here as much as I was?
Always. They're taking a huge risk out there. And I love Jackie carrying that giant, obnoxious trophy to the ring. It's like bigger than her, and it's hilarious. And it reminds me of Owen carrying his 2 slammies into the ring back in the day. So I really liked seeing that. I didn't think this match was terrible between Luna and Jackie, and it's not surprising. It's just those names alone, it shouldn't surprise anybody. It was pretty good work in the ring for sure. And I got to be honest, I even liked Sable. I liked her interference because it was more realistic. She just got up and shook the ropes so that Jackie would fall. That's fine. I'd rather see that type of work from Sable than see her in an actual match trying to do wrestling moves. So I didn't hate this. I thought it was a pretty good way to get Sable out there in front of the fans, and was a pretty decent women's match.
I completely agree. And I actually didn't hate starting from the very beginning. We have a different oddities from the last time we saw them. They've switched up their ring persona. They're no longer supposed to be like these freaks that are from a horror movie or something. And now they're just goofy and funny, and they come out dancing. Golga has the Cartman shirt on now. They're definitely in the oddities that I remember the most. And this is how I remember them. And that led into what I thought was a great match between Luna and Jackie, too. It's been forever since we've seen an actual women's match between 2 actual woman wrestlers. So that was exciting to see. Even though it was only 2.5 minutes, the action was good. And I also liked that JR remembers that the audiences aren't all completely brain dead dumb fucks, and says that it looks like Luna and Sable have put their feud behind them, because just a couple months ago they were trying to kill each other when Luna was with Goldust. So props for JR for that. And then to end it, just all around, I thought for a little short 2-3 minute segment, this delivered.
Yeah, completely agreed. And I really wish that the Divas, what would you call it, division, it really wasn't even a division, but I really wish that they would have stuck with this type of format, because between Luna, Jackie, Chyna eventually, they had a really solid foundation of what could have been a really solid women's division. But
yeah, and even Ivory comes in at some point.
Yes, yeah.
Yep. You know, something I never realized until, years later, was that Ivory was one of the wrestlers from Glow.
Yeah.
She wrestled for Glow.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Legit wrestler, yeah.
All right, so moving on, we got footage of a limousine pulling up out back, and the Outlaws climbed out, the New Age Outlaws. That seemed to prop up the hints we got earlier that DX might just be breaking up tonight. But let's not talk about something that might be interesting when we can go into our next match.
Hey, watch it! That's my career!
There he goes.
Out for the count.
Yeah. man, it hurts every time I hear. Every time I hear the music start up now, I hurt inside. I imagine feeling my nose getting broken and my hamstring string getting torn, all kinds of shit.
I think at this point, and probably moving forward for the rest of my life, when I hear the go down sound from Mike Tyson's Punch Out, I'm going to think of Dr. Death seeing stars and landing flat on his face.
Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, absolutely.
Like Joe Glass.
Darren Drozdov defeats Savio Vega in 3 rounds in a Brawl For All match. I really thought Droz was out of this. I don't know. Mero is... Okay, yeah, I know Mero was definitely out of this.
Because of Hawk's broken nose, I think, is why Droz is back in. Like, half the people involved right now have been brought back because of injury.
Well, not just that, but it seems like a lot of these people are dropping out. Just, like, the excuse is injury, but they see what is happening to people in it, and they're like, I changed my mind.
Like your hero, Dan Severn, last week.
Yes, he's totally my hero. Absolutely. So it's so hard to keep track of what's going on with this tournament, with this bullshit. We did finally get brackets tonight, but there's just been so much bullshit leading up to them that it's hard to take any of it seriously. Savio Vega still being billed as a Los Boricuas member, so that was pretty shitty to hear. And besides that, there were quite a few dingers throughout this. Droz and Savio both looked fairly decent as far as a Brawl For All match goes, but my biggest takeaway was that I just really wish that I could see Savio back in the ring in an angle that does not involve gang warfare or teaming with a Sasquatch. Ryan, what'd you have on this Brawl For All installment?
Not much. Like all other Brawl For Alls, this was pretty dumb, and the crowd started booing almost immediately, because at this point, they know what they're going to get as soon as it starts. And really, the only thing I have to mention is JR still talking about Bart Gunn knocking out Dr. Death. You could just hear the hatred in his voice. He's so fucking angry over that.
Yeah, this was not a good Brawl For All match at all. JR also, in between crying about Dr. Death, he told us that Savio Vega is coming off of a neck injury. We haven't seen him in a while. Great idea, guys. Let's book him in a Brawl For All match, just coming off a neck injury. Crazy booking here. And yeah, this just, Savio came real close to getting knocked out a couple of times, but didn't. And I think we maybe got another boring chant from the crowd. So yeah, not very good.
Yeah, par for the course with these Brawl For All matches, really. So,
especially if they don't have Bart Gunn in them.
Yeah. So after that, Triple H and China came whipping into the backstage garage in a convertible BMW. That was a really good-looking car. I really liked the color of it. After a commercial break, we came back to Michael Cole trying to interview China about the apparent rift in D-Generation X. She promptly punked out Cole by shoving him into the convertible.
Put him on his ass.
Finally, getting what he deserves.
The Legion of Doom came out next down to the ring, acting like they were showing up for a match.
I'm sorry, who? Who was
Legion of LOD 2000.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Yes, my bad.
No longer featuring Sonny.
Right. So how are they even... The only thing keeping them LOD 2000 are those stupid fucking welders.
The helmets, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were showing up for a match that we were told was going to be with Southern Justice. But instead, Hawk fell down on the ramp, clearly inebriated. Last night on Heat, Tennessee Lee finally got what was coming to him. The embezzlement was exposed, and Southern Justice and Double J kicked the shit out of his emphysema-riddled ass. Southern Justice, there in the ring, jumped Hawk and Animal. Officials showed up to carry out Drunken Hawk, but did nothing to stop and help Animal, who was then getting double-teamed, mercilessly. JR made sure to emphasize that this was not a match, just as Droz came running down to rescue Animal, and Double J came down with a little bit of a shorter haircut, a different dress style, and carrying his classic Don't Piss Me Off acoustic guitar, which he exploded over Droz's head. Double J then pulled out a pair of clippers and started shaving Droz's head off in chunks for some reason, his hair. And things wound down in the ring. We got another view outside. This time it was X-Pac showing up, and X-Pac got the biggest crowd pop yet for the DX arrivals. After another commercial break, the New Age Outlaws came down to the ring, followed by X-Pac, then Triple H and China, and my God, China. Smoking hot here in this white thing. I don't know what you would call that. It wasn't quite a sports bra. It wasn't quite a tank top. I don't know what it was, but she looked great in it. We thought Hunter was going to lead this, but X-Pac ended up grabbing the mic, called Chyna a bitch. Both Hunter and Chyna jack-offs, and I popped over that. Triple H then called the New Age Outlaws jack-offs, and then there was just a lot of talk about jacking off. And the DX split was announced. That meant, ultimately, Chyna mooning the hard camera, the split meaning ass crack, because that wasn't obvious to me at first until they started to pull down their pants. Try then solicited some titty flashing, hitting the four corners with his pants unbuckled. That was pretty classy, I thought. Then after another commercial break, we came back to Michael Cole in the locker room with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who promptly hauled Michael Cole into the shower room, shoved him under the faucet, and put the water to him.
Beautiful.
So, gentlemen, another girthy segment here, and plenty of interesting things happening, but my two big takeaways from it are that we still have not seen Southern Justice in a match, thank God. And I was just loving the abuse of Michael Cole here so far. Ryan, your thoughts, please.
Starting with the match that never happened, I first have in my notes, it looks like we're finally going to get to see Southern Justice in the ring, but that was abruptly ended.
Folks, this is not a match. This is not a match.
Yeah, that was pretty good to hear. But one thing that was sad was me and Joe predicted it last week. This was the end of Tennessee Lee. He was attacked by Double J, Southern Justice, and probably one of the saddest nights in wrestling history, because we're not going to get to see that wonderful man, that wonderful manager anymore.
Profusely sweating.
Yeah. This was another thing that happened on Sunday Night Heat. We didn't even get a proper send-off for him on Raw.
Yeah, he deserves better.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right.
I feel it was entirely appropriate. The C show.
It was good to see, though. It looks like Double J, he's in this version that I remember him in. I remembered the other version as well, but this one is the Attitude Era Jeff Jarrett that I remember. So cool to see that, even if it did mean we were going to lose not Southern Justice, wishful thinking there, Tennessee Lee, even though Tennessee Lee's gone. The DX part, I thought it was funny the way it started. X-Pac telling Triple H about that bitch, and he calls him a couple jagoffs. I'm going to call them jagoffs instead of jackoffs, but Triple H then pretty much lays out we're all jackoffs, so we're just a big pack of jackoff. We get to hear that word a few times, and then we learn it's just all about mooning, and it was pretty nice to see Chyna drop it down. She's got a pretty nice ass on her there. And then the rest of DX moons the crowd as well, and we get Triple H asking for some more ladies to dump him out, seeing if that ad that they took out in the newspaper was going to work for him. They didn't show this time, though, so we don't know if he actually was able to get anyone to play along, but he was trying his best. Then Michael Cole again. He's just getting bullied tonight, and it's great. Austin doesn't answer a single question, just immediately into the showers like he's a fucking pencil neck geek, turns it on. The only thing that would have made it better is if he put Michael Cole on his ass before he turned the shower on, so I guess you can't get everything.
The other thing that would have made it better is if The Rock appeared and said, "Wash up, jabroni, because you stink," to Michael Cole. But I do love seeing the bullying and abuse on Michael Cole. That's really what should be happening every time we see him on our screens, because he's a pencil neck geek. And I don't like to see the abuse of Tennessee Lee. That's very sad, but if it's going to give us that Double J, Attitude Era Double J, then I'm okay with it. As soon as I saw that "Don't Piss Me Off" on the guitar, I said, "Oh boy, here we go. We're already there. There's no weird buildup, no taint tickling. We're there."
Yeah.
So that's good to see. A lot of this stuff tonight, not a lot of the stuff, but some of the stuff on the show you can tell is Vince Russo Crash TV type booking, where it's just, it's not long-term storytelling. It's just a short-term, couple weeks, like this is it. And one of those things was this angle with DX, because last week we saw X-Pac and Triple H have a match and they looked like they were pissed off with each other, and then just 1 week later they're joking around and teasing a breakup, but it doesn't happen. So this is just, again, Crash TV. They're trying to get the word jack off as many times as they can for the censors. That's obviously them fucking around with USA Network. And then obviously China showing her ass in a thong is also challenging USA Network there, but revealing a perfectly toned and tan buns of steel. So you can't complain about that.
I was really excited to see the change in Double J too here, because I've been really down on Double J, as we all know. He's really been horrible lately, and hopefully this is turning the corner for him. Maybe take some better control over his booking this way, maybe. But for me, the only thing that could have made the Michael Cole segment better, and what I really thought was going to happen, was a swirly.
Yeah.
I saw they were in some kind of locker room, and I really thought that Austin was heading for a toilet stall, but no dice there.
Dave Hebner would be there to help.
Yes, he would, peeking over the top of the stall. All right, guys, let's move it along to our next match. Vader versus the Godfather ends in a no contest. Just real quick before we get into it, Ryan, have we received any updates from Vader lately?
I think that we did. Let me check our voicemail real quick.
Thank you.
Looks like we got something.
Maybe Vader time's over. I'm nothing but a big piece of shit. Big fat piece of shit.
It never gets old. It never gets old for me. I fucking love it. All right. So, Godfather coming out. The hose looked good. And, well, relatively speaking, as far as hoes go in Omaha. But we got immediately diverted to Bart Gunn at the commentary table yelling at JR about making excuses for Dr. Death Steve Williams. Bart was unhappy with the fact that his left hook was being overlooked in all of that. JR tore Bart Gunn a new one, telling Bart to take it up with the Godfather, because the Godfather is who Bart is going to be taking on in this tourney bracket next week. Back up in the ring, when the Godfather offered the hose to Vader, I popped with the look on Vader's face, like no longer a mastodon, but like a mastiff, like a big sad puppy that's drooling and looking at a bone that he can't quite get to. I loved that look on Vader's face, and I empathized with him for the first time ever. Vader ended up taking the hose, the first time in recent memory that Vader has come out as the overall winner, I thought. And just as I was thinking that, Vader made the dumb fuck decision to go shit talk Bart Gunn and got his mastodon ass knocked out and went right back to being a big fat piece of shit laying there on the concrete. And that's it. That's all I had here. Joe, what a roller coaster for Vader here. The highest of highs back to the baseline low. What did you think of this quasi match?
Yeah, the Bart Gunn angle just seemed like an opportunity for JR to scold Bart Gunn on TV. I think that's the only reason why they threw that in there. Vader took the hose, which is the correct choice just in general.
Yeah. That's the smart choice.
Yeah, but in return, it saves us from seeing him in a match, too. So it's like a double
great point.
Win there. There was a fan when Godfather was making his proposition to Vader, there was a fan that screamed, "Take the hose." Like you hear on Price is Right, people just shouting out,
$3.99.
Yeah, so I enjoyed that. I think Vader made the right decision here, even though he made a bad decision later on. But I was happy to see that he made that good decision early on that saved us from seeing him in a match.
At the beginning of this, I was wondering if Bart Gunn realized, like, just how real this conversation with JR was going to be and just how much this was going to affect his career. I'm assuming he didn't know that quite yet, but sad to see Bart Gunn over here basically saying the truth. JR, you were so upset over Dr. Death. We noticed it, so I'm glad that it was addressed here at least. Then we get the proposition for the hose for Vader here, and two of these ladies, man, they look like they would have done a better job being with the oddities than hose,
Yeah.
At least any hose I'd want to hire, but at least one of them looked pretty decent for Vader to bring home. And I was thinking here, I almost wrote down in my notes, it looks like Vader is finally going to walk away looking like the winner. And then I didn't even get that thought out of my mind, and he gets dropped by one punch by Bart Gunn just to say, no, Vader's still a big fat useless piece of shit. So sad for Vader, sad day for him, but the segment itself, I thought, for a Vader segment, worked.
Yeah, and probably the biggest winners here were the hoes.
Yeah.
Because just imagine the smell.
Yeah.
The smell that they would have had to deal with.
Yeah, I think JR made a comment about that too. About, man, they might want to consider doing his laundry too or something like that.
All right, so after that, we got a view of a very long stretch limo pulling into the arena with Val Venus and John Wayne Bobbitt in the back of it. Right on top of that, though, a hazy view of Dustin Runnels in a white polo shirt against a blue background, warning that the next segment is going to include genitalia, gratuitous violence, sensationalistic nonsense, and then suggested an alternative in a lizard documentary. I thought that was pretty good, actually. That's the first Dustin Runnels segment that hasn't annoyed me. He also promised the return of the Savior again here sometime soon, so just keeping our taints teased for that. Then John Wayne Bobbitt came out, wheeling Val Venus in a wheelchair. He had an ice pack on his crotch. Mrs. Yamaguchi-san was also there with them. Jerry Lawler was there in the ring to conduct the interview. The puns here were ridiculous. Val was very quiet in the delivery of his promo, which allowed us to hear the sheer amount of people in the crowd calling him a fucking pussy. But this was a swerve. Val tore his clothes off to reveal that due to a cold butcher's block, some shrinkage, and his good friend John Bobbitt turning the lights off at just the right time.
No. Cutting the lights off.
Yes, that's right.
Get it correct.
The puns. There was no genital mutilation, contrary to what was implied there at the end. John Bobbitt got on the mic, and it was fucking horrible. I'm not even going to try. Not even going to try.
Yeah,
to
he
quote
was bad.
He said. Val ended up dumping Mrs. Yamaguchi-san there in the ring, saying that no woman is worth the trouble that she brought him. Then he kicked her out of the ring and tossed her a AA battery, the implication being that she can go fuck herself.
No woman or girl in her case.
Yeah. And then finally, we got the news that Edge is in the arena, and a fan, I don't know if you guys saw it, but a fan tried to stick a sign in front of Edge, and Edge, ripped it out of the kid's hand and crumpled it up and, shoved it down, all while not moving. The only thing that moved was Edge's arm, and he maintained that edgy pose the whole time, aside from tearing down the sign.
I think I read somewhere that he broke that kid's neck.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's not surprising. So again, guys, a girthy segment. I trimmed it down quite a bit because I just did not feel like quoting some of the Val Venus and John Bobbitt shit.
Like Yamaguchi's son, you trimmed it down.
Right. But I just have to say that with this, I really think Val Venus jumped the shark for me. Choppy your pee-pee is one thing. But the inclusion of John Wayne Bobbitt is just shitty and cringy. It doesn't hold up at all. 25 years later, choppy your pee-pee, that holds up. John Wayne Bobbitt and these stupid fucking pop culture references that they're throwing in with this Crash TV shit, not working for me, brother. So somebody that it may work for, though, Joe, please, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think that John Bobbitt was probably cheap enough for them to get, so they got him. And thanks to him, the Valboski is cocked, locked, and ready to unload again. So that's exciting. But I really loved the lead up to this, with John Bobbitt pushing Val Venus down the ramp in a wheelchair, and just the disappointed "hello, ladies" from Val Venus. Just different promo from his normal promo. I thought it was pretty funny, and the ice pack, of course. But yeah, it's a Vince Russo swerve. Again, it's 2 weeks ago we got the choppy or PP, and then last week it was apparent that his PP had been chopped, but then the swerve is this week. So what's next for Val? I know there's another big storyline for him that happens in the future, but I'm not sure if there's much else past that, but we'll see what's next, because they basically changed it up a lot here, because Mrs. Yamaguchi-san is now out of the picture as far as, well, with Val Venus anyway, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, just thinking this was entertaining for tonight on Raw, but what's next for Val?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And I didn't hate this segment either. I don't know if I loved it, but I don't know. Bartlett, you said it doesn't hold up. And I would say anyone from our generation knows exactly who John Wayne Bobbitt is.
Oh, yeah.
So it holds up because he's still known as the guy that got his dick chopped off. And to that point, can you think of anyone who has cashed in on a more unfortunate situation than John Wayne Bobbitt? Because if you remember back then, that guy was everywhere for a good month.
Definitely.
Yeah, he started in porn.
Yeah, after he got it reattached, he was in porn. The guy was everywhere. So I'll give him credit for making some bank off of an unfortunate situation. But on the mic, he was not good. That was really piss poor.
He's no Jason Sensation, that's for sure.
He is not, or William Shatner, for that matter. He did not do good on the mic, but I actually thought the use of him was pretty hilarious, and I loved the wheelchair, Val having that big cartoon like pack of ice on his crotch in the in the wheelchair. Like, I thought all of that worked. But again, like you, Joe, I'm not sure where we're going to go. To use another pun here, it seems like maybe Val Venus's character has climaxed.
Oh, God.
I think I know in the future what storyline you're talking about. But in between then and now, I think it's just he comes out, says, hello, ladies, and then he wrestles, because he doesn't, as far as I remember, have anything memorable until that future storyline, which we're years away from at this point.
Yeah.
I thought it worked. We also learned that John Wayne Bobbitt is apparently Batman. He cut the lights at just the right moment and saved a strung up Val Venus. So we have, or at least Val has, John Wayne Bobbitt to thank.
John Wayne Batman.
John Wayne Batman.
Val should say, I never got to thank you. And you never will.
Pray to me.
Oh, man. Yes.
Yeah, to me, I think the main difference here is there is a certain lack of quality in the outside celebrity. Objectively, I suppose you can probably call him a celebrity because of his 15 minutes of fame, but this is no Nicky Turturro. This is no Pete Rose. This is
John Wayne Bobbitt.
This is the lowest common denominator, is what this is.
They had ICP.
Yeah.
The lowest common denominator.
As far as I know, John Wayne Bobbitt believes in magnets.
Yeah. And you have to remember, this is wrestling.
True. Very true. I think that's what stands me aside as an 18%er in this one, apparently, because this is just
crazy. He was able to still cash in too, because this is 1998. Having his wiener cut off was probably like 5 years before this, so he's still cashing in on that.
Yeah, and there is some argument as to how much cashing in he did. I don't know if you've ever seen any documentaries about him after the fact, but he basically turned into a raging piece of shit pretty quickly in various ways. So I think he's better now, but at the time, he had some issues.
As far as I remember, he was a raging piece of shit, and that's why he got his dick cut off by his wife.
Yeah.
So,
and then he got worse. But anyway, I'm not going to continue to try to justify anything about John Wayne Bobbitt's afterlife after the WWE, post-WWE.
Post-trimming.
Right. But I didn't hold up for me. But hey, let's keep it going with something else that just sure as fuck didn't hold up 25 years later and really didn't at the time either. Our next match.
Bro, this is a Brawl For All. This is a shoot, not wrestling. Bro, it's boom, 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 boom. Just look at it logically. Does it make any sense?
It pissed off JR, so
yeah,
worked in that sense.
Bradshaw defeats Mark Marrow in 3 rounds in a Brawl For All match. So I have nothing to say about this other than it was perfectly representative of everything wrong with the Brawl For All, minus career-ending injuries, of course. There were none of those in this that I'm aware of. Ryan, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I think this is the 12th time that Mark Marrow has been brought back into the tournament. I I swear he's been knocked out at least a baker's dozen amount of times.
He's still reeling from that hit to his career that Sable did to him.
He will never recover from that, as we know. That's even the reason that Austin refused to do a program with him right around this time, right? I think I read that Austin was supposed to have a pay-per-view match with him, and he basically was like, he got powerbombed by Sable. Who's going to take me serious? He's any bit of a contender for the belt at this point. So
wait a second. Are we saying then that because Sable bombed Mero, we are stuck with CAHOOTS? Like this could have been Mero and Austin this whole time.
This could have been Mero and Austin right now.
But because of the Sable bomb, we have CAHOOTS instead as the plan B. Jesus,
we don't know that for sure, but based off of Stone Cold's talk, that the timeline matches up.
He probably had to say the same thing about Dr. Death. Well, I'm not fighting this guy. Who's next?
Well, he couldn't fight him. Dr. Death had his jaw broken, knee dislocated, foot broke, fucking quad tore.
Wheelchair bound for the rest of his life, basically.
Well, JR did tell us that he spent a significant amount of time in the hospital after that match. So
lost a couple of toes. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude's fucking dead, just like his career. The only thing I'll mention about the Brawl for All is that JR informed us that Bradshaw is a big old nasty bull and that he played football for Adeline Christian. So he made sure he told us that. Other than that, completely forgettable, like every single one of these matches.
Yeah. And if you remember from the Brawl for All documentary, that Bradshaw was the reason for the Brawl for All idea.
Yeah. Yep. It was Russo wanting to get back at Bradshaw for being a bully.
The only thing I have noted is, and it's something that Bartlett, you mentioned earlier in the evening, is that finally, all of a sudden, there's a bracket for this Brawl for All.
Yeah.
And it appears as though we are approaching the end of the Brawl for All because the semifinals, I believe, are next week. So approaching the end, which is nice, and I'm sure this crowd will agree with me because they were booing after round 2, and they were booing the fact that there was going to be a tie-breaking round after the third round.
So I assume that the final is at SummerSlam then?
I don't think it is.
No?
I don't.
Because JR said we were 3 weeks away from SummerSlam, and we've got 2 weeks of brackets left.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they haven't shown a Brawl for All every week. Sometimes they miss one.
I think the next 2 weeks, though, we're going to see it.
That's odd, because I would have thought after, it seems like 4 months of Brawl for All, I figured the final would be on a pay-per-view.
I think they're over it. I think they're over it because of what happened, and that's why we're seeing a bracket all of a sudden, and it's like, okay, we're done. We're fucking done. This guy spent days in the hospital.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've pretty much put a timer on it with this bracket showing that it's winding down. We're going to be done with it. No more deaths involved. Okay, let's get the fuck away from that. I was going to say they're just getting worse, but really not. They're the same quality that they always have been.
Yeah.
I think you might enjoy the next couple, though. We'll see.
Maybe.
If I remember correctly.
So after that, we had a moment with commentary where they reminded us of what happened earlier tonight with The Undertaker at the start of the show. And that led to Michael Cole getting snubbed by The Undertaker when asked for comment. And that took us into our final match of the night. Kane and Mankind defeat the New Age Outlaws, The Nation, and Austin and The Undertaker by pinfall in 14 minutes and 30 seconds in a 4-way tag team match to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. JR started this, informing us that this features the Outlaw Rule, named after the Outlaws, where members of the same team cannot pin each other to sneak in a win. I thought that was cool. It reminded me of the Freebird rule with 3-man tag teams, and you can, if you're in a tag match, you can choose any 2 members of the 3-man stable. They've been applying the Freebird rule with the various stables like the Nation and DX. Well, not DX so much now, but I thought it was neat that there's a rule named after a group. Doesn't happen often. It's cool. So before all the teams were out, Shamrock showed up to attack Owen Hart, cranking the ankle lock on Owen Hart. DX filled the ring to just beat on The Rock. Steve Blackman showed up out of nowhere for some fucking reason. Didn't really do much there. And after things got settled down, D'Lo Brown came in to replace Owen Hart, who apparently needed medical attention after all of that. Eventually, everyone was in place in the ring, and it got started with Mankind and Austin. A fan rushed the ring. That was entertaining. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that. There was a botched 3 count with the Road Dogg and D'Lo. Looked like D'Lo forgot to kick out, or maybe he was waiting for some interference or something, but the wiener, Earl Hebner, the worst referee in the history of the business, gave it the full 3. The fans noticed because there was some booing there at Gold Circle seating. Despite that, D'Lo was the early standout for me, mostly because as the least experienced person there, D'Lo was really holding his own and carrying a lot of time in the ring. The work looked good no matter who he was in there with. I had to note JR mentioning the long history between The Undertaker and Mankind, still 0 mention of the Hell in the Cell. Hasn't happened yet. Shawn Michaels, once on commentary, is the most it's been talked about.
And by the way, what's happened to Shawn Michaels? He's disappeared.
Well, rumor is he's gay in real life. He may be involved in a secret lifestyle we don't know about, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that one guy with that one sign told me that one time.
In real life.
So also the Road Dogg was a highlight in this match for me. So like D'Lo carried the first half of the match. The Road Dogg pretty much carried it in the second half. He was helping to manufacture ways for there to be various hot tags to the multiple superstars in the mix. And as objectively the weakest... Well, I got to think about that for a second. Yeah, Road Dogg is probably the weakest wrestler in this mix. As the weakest wrestler, he was doing a great job of making everybody else look good, but also selling that weakness and fatigue, and just no matter how much he got the shit beat out of him, he kept kicking out and kept setting up these scenarios for there to be hot tags between people. In the end, Kane ended up chokeslamming The Undertaker to win the tag titles, furthering the story of CAHOOTS, because that could mean that The Undertaker took that to give it to Kane. But things didn't end there. We got some extra attitude, picking up where things left off, and all this was Austin and The Undertaker alone in the ring. There was a brief verbal confrontation between the two of them that we could not hear, with The Undertaker gesturing that championship belt would be his. Then the glass broke one last time, and we faded to black. So, guys, while this was objectively a good match and full of star power, I also feel like it was a bit of an attempt to make up for the amount of non-wrestling content in the episode. That, along with furthering this CAHOOTS story, just meant that, I still didn't care. The match was good, but I just continue to wait for this story to be over. Ryan, what'd you think of our final match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
One of the first things that I'll mention is something JR brought up at the top of this match, which is the amount of champions involved in this match. We have the heavyweight champ, we have the European champ, the IC champ, and of course they're all wrestling for the tag team belts. The only person missing is Taka with the light heavyweight belt. That's the only champion missing here. So I thought that was cool and lends to the fact that this is one hell of a star-studded main event for the 3rd week in a row. This has now been 3 weeks in a row that we end on packing in as much star power as humanly possible in this final segment. And to a pretty good effect, I thought. One thing I did like, you brought up Road Dogg and his action in the ring, was I love Road Dogg's signature elbow drop. You know how he does that just little knee wiggle thing before he drops it.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, the little jive. And really, everyone involved here has those little mannerisms that make very basic moves their own. Stone Cold does a similar thing with his elbow drop, where he does some wild movement of his hands before he drops the elbow. The Rock does that little leg shake before he kicks. And it's just a cool way that these wrestlers make a very simple, basic move their own. And I think that's always cool. Another thing that stuck out to me was Billy Gunn. He wasn't in there a lot, but at one point he picks up Kane in like a vertical suplex, holds him up there, showing off his strength for a little bit before slamming him. And I really do think Billy Gunn is one of the unsung heroes of the Attitude Era. He's a big, strong guy. He's like 6'5", 275, 280, works well in the ring. I think he's someone who gets kind of lost in the shuffle when we talk about all the greats from the Attitude Era. Not to mention that I also completely agree with his motto. I also am an ass man. Got to give him props for that. And I think I mentioned this a couple years ago from JR's podcast. He brought up what a good ring worker Billy Gunn was, but the biggest problem that he had was that he had asthma. So it was tough for him to have a solo career take off because he couldn't get in those long 20, 25-minute pay-per-view matches and be the sole person in there. So that kind of sucks. There's nothing he could really do about that. JR called The Rock a blue chipper again. I promised I'll mention that every time he says it. So I had to bring that up. And just all around, I thought this match worked. It did what they wanted it to do. They jammed in all of these giant stars who worked well together and what I thought left off Raw on a strong foot.
I agree with all that. This was jamming all of your big name stars in here at the end and kind of going the other way. If I was at this show live, I would be disappointed because you got 2 Brawl For All matches. You got shenanigans with Vader, shenanigans with Hawk, but you didn't get any Stone Cold Steve Austin until this very end last match here. And same thing with The Rock and other big names. We saw Undertaker and Kane and Mankind earlier, but this, I don't know, this was just disappointing the whole way through this episode. I just don't think it was laid out very well. So it forced them to jam all these big names in at the end. And it's a match that I just don't care for. I don't care for this type of match where you have 4 tag teams in there, or even if it was a 4-way singles match. I'm not a fan of those types of matches. And this is supposed to be part of that build up to SummerSlam, but I don't know. To me, it feels more like a build up to Survivor Series, where it's like all these different teams together and CAHOOTS, all this bullshit, just disappointing build up to a big pay-per-view. Even though this match was not particularly bad, it just wasn't laid out very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
My highlight for tonight was the segment with John Bobbitt. I thought it was fucking hilarious. I know he was bad on the mic, but I just thought the whole thing was funny as hell. And for my low light, I'm going to go with I'm just not excited about SummerSlam right now. I think that they are not building up to that event very well. It's like you're waiting for that Val Venus climax to happen. It's like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Will you just get to the point here? And they're just not. There's just different bullshit happening every week. It's like, is Undertaker going to turn heel? Is he not? Like, this is just a very bad build up for the main event at SummerSlam. That's my low light for tonight.
My highlight, and it's really only because it was the only real wrestling I felt like we got, is the final match. This wasn't the best match in the world by any means. It was just the only wrestling we really got all night. So for me, it was kind of the default highlight. And for me, the low light was that we got 2 fucking Brawl For All matches in one episode. That's just fucking unforgivable.
Yeah. So I am going to be differing from both of you guys here. My highlight was the amount of abuse that Michael Cole took in this episode. I loved it. That did my heart some good. My low light, though, I thought there were a lot of things to pick from, but I ended up going with the lack of wrestling. These girthy storytelling segments tend to lose me when they go on for too long. I need the more balanced product that I know that they are able to provide. And just to take that one step further, I actually had this noted here. Joe, you brought it up already. I would have been pissed if I were in the crowd that night. 5 matches, 2 of them Brawl For Alls, 2 of them complete throwaway matches, and then this main event that is propping up this bad story that's a bad setup for SummerSlam. Like, the main event was a schmoz by design, and that's just not my cup of tea at all. I thought that the pacing of this episode, or maybe the layout of it, if you will, was just really poor. So that was my low light.
I was at the beginning of the final match. I was a little sad that The Undertaker didn't bully Michael Cole in any way.
He did ignore him.
He ignored him, which is a mental bullying.
It's still the disrespect that we'd like to see.
Yeah. But I wanted to see him like physically harm him in some way, and didn't get that.
Rather than an emotional table topping.
Right.
Okay. No, that's valid. Totally valid. Joseph, do you happen to have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around August 10th, 1998 for us?
I do. Speaking of poor layout, I had to decipher through all this bullshit in the Wrestling Observer this week.
Poor formatting.
Just one run-on sentence.
One big paragraph.
No spaces. You had the...
Correct. Yeah, I had to create my own spaces, so bear with me here. WCW Road Wild happened 2 nights ago, August 8th, and it received 17% thumbs up from the Observer readers, so must not have been very good. But the main event featured Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff versus Diamond Dallas Page and Jay Leno. And surprisingly, that was not voted as the worst match. The worst match was voted to be Steve Mongo McMichael versus Bryan Adams, which is not the singer Bryan Adams, everybody. That is Crush.
Crush. Yeah.
Wrasslin Raw favorite, Crush. So that's what you're getting with WCW pay-per-views. Rick Martel, everybody remembers Rick Martel. He has retired as a result of recent injuries. He was at the age of 42 at this time, and he's retiring from in-ring competition.
That hurts, because we're all 42 to realize we would be retiring.
Yes.
At this point, if we were wrestling.
With crippling injuries.
Yes.
USA Today ran a story on pro wrestling on August 6th. And it featured Goldberg and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the article. Goldberg was quoted as saying of Austin, "I respect the guy for what he's done, but I don't respect him enough to copy him. Steve Austin is known as one of the best promo guys in the world, but Steve Austin doesn't do one thing that I can do in the ring." And Steve Austin shared some thoughts on Goldberg and said Goldberg is squashing people with his power moves, and that's great. But he doesn't know the psychology yet. I'm able to go out there and take the fans on a 30-minute roller coaster ride. So a little exchange of words there.
Was the one thing Goldberg was talking about that he could do in the ring that Stone Cold can't? Was that end Bret Hart's career?
Not yet.
Is that
he's training? Well, he's training for that.
Referring to.
Yeah.
He's training.
He's got a watermelon set up on a pole at home.
Yeah. You can't have a USA Today article on pro wrestling without Vince McMahon getting in on the action. So Vince McMahon commented on the Monday Night Wars and took a verbal shot at Hulk Hogan, because why not? Vince said it's the same old Hulk Hogan situation. Every time Hogan is on the air, we clobber them. It's a tired old situation.
Jeez.
Speaking of ratings, WCW squeaked by this week with a 4.70 rating compared to WWF pulling a 4.55 rating. So WCW took over on the war this week. There were rumors that in 1998, the WWF was trying to get into the hotel casino business during this time. That never happened, but could you imagine a WWF hotel and casino? And what that would what that would look like.
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
Wrestler themed slot machines.
Yeah.
Gambling on wrestling.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that just sounds ridiculous. Yeah. But totally, totally accurate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this what ends up maybe leading into, I remember they end up opening that like club in New York.
No.
The WW. No, okay.
No, I don't think this is related or connected to that.
All right.
This was like a hotel casino they wanted to open in like Vegas or Atlantic City. Basically, Vince McMahon probably attempting to compete with his buddy Donald Trump, maybe. I don't know. But,
yeah. Maybe Trump was talking in his ear. You really needed to do was open up a place in Atlantic City.
Right.
Wonderful, beautiful Atlantic City.
And once you embezzle the shit out of it and drive it into the ground, you just declare bankruptcy. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was an interesting thing that I read this week. And for the last piece of news, I know everybody is excited for this, and they were probably really excited for this back in 1998. There will be a risque Sable video released in November of 1998, so get ready.
Happy birthday to me.
Yeah.
Hopefully she talks a lot in that video.
Hopefully they get somebody to overdub it like a Japanese Godzilla movie. Like her like walking around on the beach and then just like some totally different voice that isn't hers at all talking.
If it was done today, they could use AI and it would sound more human than her talking.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell. And that is all this week.
Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating, as always. I have a brief follow-up question about our episode here. I didn't want to mention it during the episode because I needed to ask you first. As our learned wrestling historian, Slapnuts for Double J Jeff Jarrett, is that a WCW thing or was that this Jarrett that we are seeing with the guitar? Because I associate Slapnuts with the guitar, but I can't remember where in the timeline that comes in.
Yeah, I believe that was WCW, Vince Russo, because when I think of Slapnuts, I think of him smashing Beetlejuice over the head at WCW. So I believe that was just WCW.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, that came to mind, but I was like, I don't really know about that. So I should probably just ask.
What's close now with the Don't Piss Me Off showing up is that Deborah will be joining. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right before he leaves for WCW, he'll take a L to China. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
That's when he holds the company up for it, right?
Some kind of story about the China situation, but there was also another one about Steve Austin with them not getting along.
Another refusing to wrestle him
yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Though they've made up at this point, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think he had him on as a guest on his show.
Right, and they talked about it.
Austin did, yeah.
I look forward to hearing what Meltzer has to say about all of that in the dirt sheets whenever all of that happens.
The dirt.
All right. That's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW just at gmail.com, and at the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the biggest bunch of jack-offs in podcasting. Talking about Monday Night Raw. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be taking a look at the Raw that aired on August 17th, 1998, with matches featuring Dan Severn, Gangrel, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.